Hey guys, John here, the Practical Tactical Minimalist, and today we are going to be adding some new scales to this Spyderco Delica. You can see it is well used. So we're going to take this apart, add the new scales, see how everything fits up and works. I got these scales from a seller on Etsy. So with any seller scales, you never know exactly how it's going to line up, but it should be pretty nice. These are just black micarta. They should wear in fairly nicely. They're very smooth, but they should wear in pretty good. It almost kind of looks like carbon fiber. All right, so to do this, we will need, I believe the pivot on these is still a T8. Actually, we'll do the T6s first. So we're gonna do the T6s, remove all the body screws and everything, and then we'll look at the inner workings of the Delica and kind of see how it all fits together. I always like to start when disassembling knives with the pocket clip. It just keeps everything together and out of the way. So we're going to unscrew these. And this is actually pretty difficult to do behind a camera. So whenever you're watching your favorite knife or gun or flashlight reviewers, remember that just the fact that they're doing anything behind the camera is fairly impressive. Lining up detents and screws, and it is quite difficult from an angle your brain isn't used to working with. There we go. These screws had some blue Loctite on them. Some of the Spydercos, depending on when you purchased it, may be a lot more difficult because they will have red Loctite on there and you have to break the Loctite with some force or like an impact or heat. Blue Loctite is preferable, or even honestly purple. There's not much vibration on these knives, and some people insist not even using Loctite at all. I like the peace of mind of knowing my screws aren't going to back out, especially with how little these are. And the knife can function without a few of them. Not ideal, obviously, but if one of them backs out, you might not even notice for a while, you know? So the way that the Spyderco Delica is, on the show side, which is the side with the logo and the company name and the steel type, it's just a round pivot, or the round female side of the screw. So when we're putting it back together, we'll have to remember that if you care, they'll go back together either way. It doesn't matter for functionality, but it looks cleaner. So if you want it to maintain that factory look, you'll want the screw heads, the T6 screw heads, to be on the clip side, whatever side that is for you, because that's one of the nice parts about backlocks and spider holes and the four-way reversible clip is this is 100% ambidextrous from the factory. No modifications needed, just flip some screws around. The only reason I am doing this video is because people seem to have a lot of problem with the Delica and Endura. I personally, don't get it. It's not difficult at all to put back together, but it is a little bit, you have to, get a system down, and if it's your first time, it could be a little bit overwhelming to try to get that backlock spring in there. So the pivot actually has a little washer on there, and those are super easy to lose. So all right, so we can see we have our scale, FRN, then we have our liner. You just kind of have to slowly work up on these. There's really no way of doing it. It's not nearly as bad as the military series, the paramilitary series, where you have that lanyard. Just kind of have to work up on there. It's tight press fit. Try to go back and forth so you're not all in one location. Putting undue pressure and warping that liner. And then there we go. Liner off, set that down. And then we have our backlock and spring assembly. You can see how that works. So there's a spring that fits in your backspacer, and that is what adds the tension to the lock bar. That's what holds your blade closed right there, just the pressure on the back of your blade locks in. So we're going to take the blade out. If you have any oil or grease, the washers will probably just stay put. And then we're gonna slowly work the back lock out, back lock spring, back spacer, and then we can start pushing these out. Now these are different sizes, so you'll want to keep them separate, the pivot from the other ones. I'm just gonna put them down in order. All right, since we were starting on this side and we know this is the side that goes into, we're going to just start reassembling. This doesn't need to be really cleaned or anything because I'm changing out these scales all the time. So we'll put these back in, and these are D-shaped. So you have to put them in a specific way. That's another reason why it's nice to do it with the scales off, disassembled like this. There we go, we'll put the back spacer on. I like to keep my fingers on the back so those spacers don't pop out. And then we'll put the pivot in. And then we'll just confirm that our washers are still on there. This part you might want to tape the blade. If I was giving you a recommendation, I would say you probably want to tape the blade just for safety. I've done this so much, I'm going to take my chances. But if it's your first time, you might want to. And then we're going to put this one on. Try to capture everything together so it stops falling out. I'm going to just leave this one out for now. And then we're going to put this scale on. Doing good. Everything's fitting together really nicely, so that is great. And then we're going to just start putting our screws back in. Just to kind of hold everything together, you know. Want to back it off until it clicks into place. You don't want to, you know, misthread anything. Okay, that one's in. These little screws are very, very simple to strip out. So don't force anything. If you feel any resistance, stop. It's very easy to get impatient and just, you know, force through. The dog is over there snoring. I don't know if you guys can hear it. There is a part, if you're using the original backspacer that is polymer, you'll want to make sure to really snap the two little circles on the sides into their corresponding spots on the liners. If you try to press fit everything together with it not seated properly, you will warp your backspacer. Spyderco will fix it for you, but they charge $25 for the whole, you know, spa treatment, getting the new backspacer, anything that's broken in your Delica, which is great because my brother had a Delica for like, I don't know, it's probably about 10 years old at this point, and he sent it in and it came back basically a new knife. So Spyderco's warranty is great, but if you're doing it just for a little plastic backspacer, it's a huge pain in the butt and pretty expensive. So just make sure everything locks into place properly before you start screwing everything together. And that's another reason we're doing it in this order. This is the best order I have found to ensure those polymer backspacers don't break. This one is an aluminum one from Wiseman Company back when they used to make Spyderco scales. So I'm not super worried about it personally, but it is something to keep in mind. So you'll want to get this little, really thin little spacer on your pivot. I think that just helps it maintain pressure. Most knives don't have that, but I think it works better with the polymer since it's that, you know, FRN style material. Gives it some rigidity so it doesn't break through that hole. Right. So when I'm putting the Spyderco Delica back together, I like to make sure that the pivot is a little bit tight. It'll just aid in this process. So there's a little channel back here you saw when it was disassembled. We have to drop that spring in there and then make sure it seats the whole way down. This has. And then what we're going to do is we're going to line up the back spring and release there so it's properly lined up. And then while it's there, we'll start this hole. Remember, it is D-shaped. And then we'll just, with both hands, work it in until everything lines up while applying a little bit of pressure, and it slides right through. So it's very overwhelming the first time you do it. However, once you figure out the mechanics of what's all working in there, super simple. And at first, the first few times I took this apart, I thought it would be really, you know, smart to kind of assemble it as it was when I was taking it apart, where it had one liner and one scale not assembled, but I kind of got everything set before I put the last liner and scale on, and that works great with aluminum or titanium or copper backspacers, but it does not work if you have your original polymer one. Every single time I did that, I would mess up one of the little holes on it. Okay, so try to screw this in without backing it out. You don't want to have to do that part all over again for no reason. There we go. We're doing all of our screws right now, just snugged it down. We'll, it's not like crazy tight, you don't want to be torquing on these, but just tighten them down so everything stays put, and then we'll go back through and get our preferred action. These little screws, this should be magnetized, but these little screws are just not staying today. I don't know why. These are the original screws. Every time you start to do something for YouTube, everything starts going wrong. This is going together very smoothly. I was not expecting this process to be this simple. But again, the Delicas are not difficult to take apart if you know what you're doing and you know what it should, like the order of events should be. They're actually pretty simple mechanisms, which is why they're so robust for simple everyday carry knives. Okay. Screwed that one a little bit too tight because the bit popped out. There we go. All right, so there's the basic package. Looks really nice, feels so much different in hand. So now we're gonna get our preferred action. Take the T8, loosen the pivot out just a bit. Let's see if this works. Nice flick open, doesn't quite slam closed. So we're gonna tighten that pivot up a bit more, and then this screw also affects how smooth everything is. So maybe back that out a bit. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's fairly centered, which is difficult to achieve on these backlock Spydercos from Seki City. Looks super nice, pretty good function. I like to be able to whip it closed. That might break in, we'll see. If not, I'll, you know, adjust the pivot and everything a little bit more. Super smooth, looks nice, feels so much different. So that's how you switch out a Spyderco Delica scale. Very simple. This was from oh man, I don't know what company. I'll put it down below. They're on Etsy. They're super high quality, really nice, from Russia, I believe. And next thing to change is the pocket clip. So I'm just still running the original pocket clip on this knife. What is a good pocket clip? I don't really like the MXG gear or Lynch Northwest. They're very usable, but I think they're ugly. So if you guys know of a slimmer deep carry clip, let me know. This has been John, the Practical Tactical Minimalist. Be safe out there.